Good morning, Harley. Thanks for joining up again. I look forward to this every time we do it.
Hmm. Absolutely. My favorite part of the week.
Mine too. Mine too. And we have been so busy, and we kind of have a culture here that the customer comes first. So, boy, I know we've talked about doing the compost tea and the brewing episode, and that's still yet to come. We have just been so busy with customers. I just haven't had a time to get all that together. So it'll be coming up here in the future.
Okay, no problem. We have a lot
Uh-huh.
that we can talk about today too. I was thinking that we talk about some of the applications for kelp,
Okay.
kelp extracts. What makes it good, how we use it, our own stories about how we personally use it, how others, how our customers or students have used it, and just to give some people insights into the kelp application. I'll start out with this one thing though. If I was only going to recommend one biostimulant product to add to any nutrient regime, it would be kelp because
Oh,
you can use it
okay.
in so many different ways. Every single gardener, whether in soil or hydroponics, should have kelp on the shelf. Period. So to start with that. So what are so I want to ask you, how in the world did you get introduced to kelp, and why did you basically build a company around it? Why did you find that important, and how did it happen?
Great question. So we kind of feel the same way. Um, Kelp is such a good, tool, almost like a Swiss Army knife. It has so many directions it can help you with in the soils and the plants and things like this. And so, anyway, I believe I first became aware of this from uh, a gentleman in Phoenix, and this had to be I can't even tell you the year, but he was playing around with a product that he called black seaweed, and we're like,
Mhm.
black seaweed, what is that? Anyway, so we got familiar, and this was way back in the biological days, and he was adding it to um, his biological fertilizer that he sold. He would produce it and bottle it and go around. And anyway, we started playing around with it, using it, and we uh, we have some good results as far as the biology counts when we do our brews and things like that. And we decided, well, we should probably see if we can start getting this in bulk, just to mix with our nutrient blends and things like that. And this was back when um, certified organic wasn't really a big deal as far as the registration and the certifications for having an organic product. And so, anyway, we started playing around with the kelp. We had a lot of inventory of kelp, and me and my brother were just uh, searching the internet for popular organic fertilizer search terms, and kelp was like over the top number one, dominated that organic sector. And we're like, you know what? People are looking for kelp. Let's make a website and offer kelp to them because it's such a huge search term and no one was really doing it at the time. And that's how it started. And so we built a whole website, a whole business just for kelp. And then we started to include other things that people were looking for based on the search term. And I mean, this was back in the early 2000s or whatnot. And poof, here we are today, kelp4less.com. And we still have returning customers that come back to us every year over the last 20 years.
Mm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and so we've developed a good bond with a lot of our growers and a lot of our customers, and we've had a good time doing it. But anyway, that's how we got started, just playing around with this product called black seaweed. And
Hmm.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I got started with it years ago when I was working as the director of research for Hydrodynamics International, and they had a product back in the old days. It's probably still out there called Nitrozyme. I don't know if you've heard of
Hmm,
that.
I'm not
Yeah,
familiar.
it's a seaweed extract, but it's liquid in liquid form, and it's pretty highly concentrated. Had quite a bit of research in agriculture, and so I started playing around with that, and because that was one of the products I wanted to learn more about it.
Hmm.
What does seaweed do? What's in it? How does it work? Um, I will say one thing right now. I have to be a little bit careful on labeling. I found out. Well, regulators. They're not always the best scientists. Kelp has literally been used in agriculture for, dare I say, thousands of years. Like the Norwegians, they swore by it because it had more of an impact on their crops than just the compost value alone. It aided with the uptake of nutrients. They've known that forever. You know, but as soon as you start to figure out why it works and how it works, and you put some things on like, oh, it's high in cytokinin. It has auxins and cytokinins and gibberellic acid. And the auxins stimulate root growth, more lateral root growth. The cytokinin stimulates cell division, more root mass. And the gibberellic acid, that stimulates cell elongation. So you put that on a website, and all of a sudden the regulators say, oh, wait a minute, that's a growth regulator. That's what's used in pesticides. So you can't, it has to be totally changed to a different category. What? We're just explaining how it works. We're not adding any chemicals to it. It's just the way nature works. So we did find that, and nitrosamine for a short period of time was taken off the shelves in a couple of states simply because the distributor put some of my educational stuff on their website. And the regulator said, "Oh, this is labeling because it's on the website," and they made us take it off. So, we understand why now. Part of why. I think there's still more to discover. I think we know that much of why it works, but it definitely goes beyond the nutrient value of the kelp.
Yeah, good point. We've run into those same issues too with registrations and labels and things like that. And it is tough sometimes to work your way through those um, hurdles or roadmaps, and they kind of want to make you conform to to a path that they're on, and in a way that is good because
Mhm.
it keeps a lot of what we call wannabes, or any product just coming in on the market and getting registered, labeled, be available for sale. So there is some good to that, but I think that community needed to learn a little bit too about things that you and I know about other substances, and going back to like being used for thousands and thousands of years. Think about all the good things that come from the ocean
Mm.
that people use to add to their soil. The fish and the seaweed and crustacean, leftovers and things like that. And again, it goes back. They were just kind of making a nice seafood platter for the soil. That's what we used to call it, a seafood buffet for the soil. So yeah, um, if all the people in our past uh, knew the benefits, and not understanding the science like you do, but they still continue to use it. We can learn a lot by looking back at those things. And so I hope when we look at growing plants and building soils and higher nutrition, we look at some of those old cultural practices because we can gain a lot from just understanding that.
I know. I mean, that's where a lot of the discoveries come from. The Pythagoreans. The He was the mathematician Pythagoras. The followers of Pythagoras, they used to define truth as that which works. So it works. If something works, it's true. But we may not know how and why it works, at least completely. But one thing I'll say about the kelp, though, it kind of makes sense when you look at how the Ascophyllum nodosum is grown. It's from the littoral zone. That's the area between um, high tide and low tide. So it's exposed to a lot of stress. It's flooded and then it's dried out almost every day. It's exposed to high UV radiation. It also has to grow very quickly. So just naturally, it has to make the molecules to fight against stress, salt stress, and drought stress, UV stress, and it also has to have the hormones so they can grow quickly, which we get into the auxins and the cytokinins. So it's already rich in minerals from the sea, all those beneficial trace elements that activate enzymes, and anti-stress compounds. So if we can harvest those molecules from the kelp and then provide those to our plants, it has some of the same effects, anti-stress effects, trace element effects, enzyme activating effects that it would have in the actual plant itself. So the littoral zone, and also it grows in temperate waters that are mineral dense. So I think another part of that, which I don't know enough about, but even the time of the year that it's harvested from the sea makes a difference in this quality.
Yeah, and when you're talking about it growing so fast and it producing those hormones to help it grow fast, a lot of times we address customers that ask a question, why is it so good for rooting? And it's because that kelp has to root into that ocean floor because the tide affects it. And so it wants to hold its place there. So it is, uh, it wants those roots deep down, branched out. And so thank goodness it's doing that because we're reaping the benefits when we get it and put it on our plants because, a lot of those same stimulants are transferred over to our soils and our plants. And go back to the sea minerals. I've never been a fan of using sea salt for the minerals in a grow or a thing like that. We would always refer them just use a little bit of kelp often. You get the same residue in there. It's anyway, it's just easier and more. And so we've always kind of steered our customers away from doing the sea salt and using kelp instead. And so I did an experiment in a greenhouse. The plants were in soil, and we had an injector set up. And every time it irrigated, it was small amounts of kelp, for probably 2 to 3 months. All the nutrient base we put in the soil. And so I was trying to overstimulate my plant. And I was going to learn so much on this experiment. And anyway, what I found out is we couldn't see any harmful effects. The only harmful effects we could see is how much money it cost us to do that every day.
Mm.
So I think once you reach a certain point, you go beyond that cost threshold, and you can only get so much benefit out of it because we always think more, and that wasn't the case on this. But I did find a discovery. The bulk bag of kelp that I laid on the floor by the injector that I would fill every day, that bag, it would create moisture from the humidity and stuff, but that bag was covered with mushrooms, and it took me back. So there is some connection to fungi and fungus growth with kelp. I haven't been able to nail it down, but I was amazed when I seen that. Have you ever heard or seen anything like that?
Not that I can remember. I do remember I did take a mushroom class from Paul Stamets, and we talked, there were some things on composting too, but I couldn't remember if it was the seaweed extracts that stimulated the fungi or, the mushroom, or if it was the humic acid. So I don't know which one it is. A lot of times we put the two together, so it doesn't matter. But I remember one stimulated more of the beneficial bacteria. The other one stimulated more of the beneficial fungi, like the
That
trichoderma harzianum.
that's a good point. So the kelp that we use and process, it does have a very high humic acid percentage when it's completed. And so a lot of people don't understand that you are getting a little bit of the humic acid compound using the soluble kelp.
Yeah.
So good point. It's in there as well, and it's a lot of.
Yeah. I thought there was one thing for me that was interesting. I learned fairly recently was, of course, the kelp again has amino acids. That's a good thing.
That's
Aid
one
with
thing
the
we don't
uptake of
talk about very
nutrients.
often, and we should.
Yeah. It has B vitamins, which stimulate cellular metabolism of the microbes. Um, and it has some sugars and some sugar chelators like mannitol, which helps make nutrients more available. Um, but one of the amino acids that is particularly high in is called tryptophan. Have you heard of tryptophan before? Yeah, in
Yes,
tryptophan,
absolutely.
yeah, tryptophan, we talk about turkey and after the dinner it makes us drowsy, right? The
Okay. Oh,
tryptophan. Okay,
yeah.
but tryptophan for plants, if plants take up tryptophan, they through the roots, pretty easily taken up. It's sent to the leaves. A little bit of the nitrogen snipped off the tryptophan, the amino part of the amino acid, and it changes it tryptophan into IAA, indolacetic acid. That's the rooting hormone, and then that's pumped to the new growth, to the meristems or to the new buds. It's also pumped down to the new roots for root development. So one of the benefits, besides just the auxinin and cytokinins that are already there, is it has the the raw materials, the precursor molecules that plant use. Now, here's one more part of tryptophan. Yeah, so it's taken up by the plant, cool. But also, remember, there's microorganisms on the roots like Bacillus amyloliquefaciens is one that we know. And when it's fed tryptophan, it does the same thing. It snips off the nitrogen for the bacteria's needs, and then it changes it into the rooting hormone right on the surface of the roots. So we've got, along with those trace cell and all the other things that kelp has, it's literally stimulating microbes and the plant to make its own auxin right in the root zone. So that contributes, I think, to the why Ascophyllum nodosum is an active ingredient in so many root stimulants, whether soil or hydroponics.
Yeah, good point. That's well said too. And on that point, we always get the question here: should I apply foliar? Should I apply in the reservoir? Should I root drench with it? Our straightforward answer to those is both. A little bit of both often. Small amounts often. We can't preach that enough. Small amounts often. And here at Kelp4less, a lot of our custom blends that we send out to people that we formulated here or formulate for other people always has a little bit in it. It's just a little bit, so it's being fed constantly along with the other nutrients and with the other minerals and things like that, just to try to get that. Again, I go back to you know, there's a big wheel. We're just trying to put as many spokes in the wheel as we can. You don't want this spoke heavy and this spoke light. We're just kind of doing it all the same, so it goes around smoothly. So that's kind of an analogy we use for people. So it has such a benefit, and most people who use it continue to use it, and that's good, and it's so beneficial. And for the reasons you said, again, I want to advertise your classes and how you teach, and your website, hydroharley.com. Love the website. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we're doing what we can to help promote that for you, because it's such a much needed class this day and age for growers that really want to be successful.
Yeah. Hey, you want to improve the nutritional value of food? You want to improve the medicinal characteristics of the medicines? You're going to have to improve the uptake of the nutrients, and kelp is one way to do that. I was looking at my book. I think I showed you this right before class. This is my old book from the 80s.
Love
It's
it.
called Seaweed and Plant Growth, and it was talking a little bit about uptake. And they did some infertile soil tests, used the kelp, and the plants were taking up manganese to higher levels than what was in the kelp. So it was literally unlocking some of the minerals in the soil that were unavailable to the plant and making them available. That's cool. And if you want to improve the medicinal value of medicinal herbs, You really need trace elements like iron and manganese to do that, to turn on some of the metabolic pathways to make the terpenes and to make some of the other or medicinal compounds in the plant. So um, yeah, that was something that I just was looking at recently on there. So there's a synergy. There's kind of a synergy. It's not just an
Yeah,
auxin. It's not just a cytokinin. It's not
yeah,
just iron. It's not just mannitol. It's all these things working together. And nature has been doing it without our help for thousands of years. But or millions, millions of years, thousands of years, millions of years. Um, but we as human beings, I believe, our part in nature should be, it is, to work with nature in an intelligent way. So here we are. We can take some of the secrets of nature from the sea and apply them to our land plants in an intelligent way and improve the productivity. We're we're the gardeners of the planet if we work with nature. Unfortunately, with some of the other not natural plant growth regulators,
hmm
they actually interfere with metabolic pathways, and that's how they work. But you work against nature, sooner or later there's going to be negative side effects for human beings and for the environment. So let's learn my opinion, let's learn the secrets of nature, learn how to harness its power and use it apply it in an intelligent way. And kelp is one of those beautiful gifts from nature.
yeah, good point. Let's work with nature, not against it. And again, going back to some of your classes, um, uh, you touch on that so often. Just because you use it doesn't mean the plant's going to get it. So there's little things you can do to make the minerals accessible to the plants, and I think the future is our own food production. I do believe that's the future. May not be on a large scale, but at home food production. I hope someday see that a staple in in our society. I think it's very important, and if we keep doing what we're doing and talking about these things, maybe we can help that move along.
Mhm. Yeah, I hope so. I really do. I think I started out saying this, but I think every gardener should have kelp and use it regularly. You don't overdo it. I know it's it's hard to overdo it, but you can. If you overdo it with your seeds, a high dose, you're stimulating metabolism of the seed, but not but you're actually inhibiting some of the germination. So when it gets into the hormones, the dosage is important. And also even as a foliar, I use it. This is my last thing I'm going to say about today, but I use it as stage 0 for cloning, called stage 0. 2 weeks before take cuttings, a light mist with kelp extracts, maybe a little yucca to help it spread out. Um, I actually put a little fulvic acid too, but just mainly the kelp. Um, it will literally pull the nutrients into the tissue. It'll break the apical dominance, the top growth, but stimulate lateral bud development. That's because of the cytokinins. So you get tighter notes, you get nutrients being pulled into the tissue. You're going to get a little bit better lateral bud development, which is your branch, your cut, and they're going to root faster. So, but I use it no more than once a week. Once every 2 or 3 weeks, you'll still have a noticeable beneficial effect on the mom. What I did do once in the lab is I did overdo it. Too high of a dose. I used it too much as a foliar, and that top bud just was like that big. It was almost like I had cut it. So you can overdo it. Also, if you overdo it, you stimulate cellular metabolism. Good thing. But one of the byproducts of cellular metabolism is heat.
Oh,
So if
good
you use
point.
too much or too often, you can burn the edges of the leaves. But you get the right dose, small dose, light dose, you can get significant, noticeable effects.
Good point. Good point. And those people that start from seed, from viable seeds, soaking those seeds in just a very light kelp solution also makes a big difference. And I'm sure it goes along with the lines that you just said when you clone or tissue culture. Yeah, just a little bit makes a huge difference soaking your seeds. If you can soak them for a couple hours, great. But if you can soak them for 10 to 12 hours, even better. We've seen significant response in that.
Oh yeah, I saw it in the book this morning, the seaweed book. You get earlier germination and a better overall germination rate. They did one test back in the 60s, I think, with beet seeds. And after 1 week, they had 80, with the ones that were treated, 85% germination for those seeds. The untreated one, 0.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
That was so they're going, oh, there might be something to this, you know. So so yeah, there's a you just don't want to soak it for a week because then you can start to
Exactly.
rot your seeds. You know, they
Exactly.
get out.
Yeah. Again, it always goes back a little bit, a
Yeah.
little bit often. Don't overdo it. And boy, what a great chat. I could talk about kelp
Yeah,
all day. I could talk about
of
this all
course.
day. I can't wait till we can meet up again in person because that's kind of what we've always done.
Yeah. I've wanted, you know how long I've wanted to come out to your facility and visit you? We've
Right.
talked about that for literally for what, 10 years, maybe five,
At
ten
least,
years.
at
Yeah.
least. Yeah, and we'd
Oh
love
well.
to show you. We'd love to show you too. And some of the things that we're seeing here on our test plots and our trials and our things. Just every year we learn more. Every year
Mhm.
we feel like we're tightening up the program, tightening up the system, but we're always learning. We're always learning. It's you know farming and growing outdoors. It's never the same. You have to deal with Mother Nature and the elements, but every year, just if we can just get the plant that much better to withstand, Mother Nature's elements, those are big gains for us. And so, yeah, we're always constantly trying to improve, learn, refine, and I know I've talked with you a lot about it, and man, I'd love to get you out here to show you some of that stuff. So we will make that happen.
We will do it. It will happen someday. And you know, it's a cool thing too. You're working with these biostimulants. You're stimulating metabolism of the microorganisms, not just the plant, right? So what I've heard from some growers is the second year and the third year is even better than the first because the soil is becoming more fertile with the enthusiastic community of mycorrhizal fungi and plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. Anyway, I guess with you, we could talk about this literally all day long, about
Yeah,
all the different applications in the science, but maybe we should save some for later.
I agree. And boy, I hope you have a good rest of the week. And we'll keep pushing your classes. I can't say that enough. The importance of someone who's really serious about that, they should just do it because it's affordable, and what you gain from that, it's invaluable. I mean, you really couldn't put a price on what that's worth. So we appreciate what you do. I've always appreciated what you do, and I've learned so much. It's been fun working with you over the years too, and I look forward to more.
Yeah, me too. Uh, I guess I'll say something about tonight's class of seaweed. Tonight is integrated pest management, part two. We're talking about treatment of specific pests and diseases, and kelp is actually part of that. I'm going to be talking about that tonight, not as a pesticide, but it has some effects on the ability of the mites, for one spider mites, to be able to grow up and to reproduce. So it has, you were talking about that at the beginning, but
Yeah,
also kelp. Yeah, kelp has um, molecules in it that are abrasive as well, and they can cause lesions on the bugs, which makes the other natural pesticides like an insecticidal soap more effective. So there's a couple of things going on there with the kelp that is used not just to improve rooting or to improve growth, but also to help the plant's natural resistance to some pest and disease. So I'll leave it at there because it's on the top of my head because I'm going to be talking about that in tonight's class on integrated pest management. So,
boy, much needed. Okay, well,
yeah.
good. Well, good.
Okay.
I guess we should probably get back to work.
Yeah,
Uh,
good idea. I need to
And
do some more preparation for tonight's class. Yeah.
yeah, all right. We'll ship some more product out. We've been really busy lately, so yeah, good seeing you again. I can't wait till the next time, and we'll talk in between like we always do too. So I mean,
Okay.
Harley's my main man. He's
Okay.
when we put our heads together, we usually have some pretty good outcomes.
Oh yeah, and more to come. There's a lot more in both of these brains. We have a lot of years between us, and got a lot of good input and feedback from people that we've known over the years too. So more stories. Stay tuned. See you next week.
You got him, my man. Take care. See ya.